So,
Okay.
Holly, thank you so much for being on with us. Want to jump right in with you and ask you, when did you and Corey Haim meet?
Okay. Well, first of all, this is my first time I've spoken about it, so bear with me because it's hard to talk about it. We met
Absolutely.
originally. Back when I was I think I was 13. I just moved to LA, and I went to an Alphy soda pop party, and they brought me back to. I had just done MacGyver, and they wanted to do a photo shoot for Bop magazine, and I went back to. They were doing a photo shoot with Corey and another actor, well-known actor, and the other actor was ripping up. They were laying on a pile of fan mail, and the other actor was ripping up the fan mail and reading it and just making fun of it. Corey looked at the guy like he was an idiot and said, you shouldn't do that. That's really cruel. These people take their time to write this mail to us. And I was thinking, wow, what a great guy. And that was the first time I ever saw Corey, and just knew right then and there he was a good person. So,
Oh, nice.
but I didn't see him. Yeah, I didn't see him again until years after that, though.
Oh, so then when did you guys start to become a couple?
That was in the later 90s, or not, well, the mid 90s, actually.
Okay. And how long did you date?
About 2 years, 2 years and a half. It was kind of on and off towards the end.
Okay. But you were engaged.
Yes, we were. Yeah, he was amazing. I would have married him, so.
And of course, I have to ask, why didn't the marriage go through? Why didn't you get to the marriage point?
Well, because everyone knows that he was struggling with medication, which I have to really talk about. The one thing people don't realize, he wasn't just some guy trying to find drugs or something. He wasn't that type of person at all. He was a person that didn't want to take them. He was very against them. But because of what happened to him in his life, and people finally know, he was a victim. He was a victim that didn't want to remember what happened to him. And once he finally started talking about what happened to him, that's when he finally didn't want the pills anymore. On top of it, these doctors, I saw with my own eyes, they pushed the pills on him. And he would ask them to please, stop. I really want to get off the pills, he would say. And they would just give him another prescription, and they didn't want to deal with it. It was very interesting to me to see how doctors would push. I mean, we all know that now because of what's happening with this epidemic. They pushed the pills on him, and he would come home and cry and say, look, I really want to stop this stuff. I want off of it. And it was really hard for him. It's hard for anyone to stop. Just looking at the world now and how many people are addicted to opiates, I feel so bad because of what happened to him due to other people. So it wasn't like him just taking pills just to take pills. He wasn't that type of guy. He was doing it more, well, pretty much only to forget about what happened to him. And he was really wanting to stop the medication that he was being given to by these doctors.
So to basically clarify, Corey Haim was definitely not the overindulgent, decadent Hollywood actor that just wanted to live fast. This was a man who was just in pain and through really kind of no fault of his own got involved with this.
Exactly. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't Hollywood. I mean, that's another thing about him. What we did for fun was, I mean, this is probably boring to other people. We would go skating at night in parking lots. We would go to Lake Tahoe and go out on the canoe, and we would spend weeks at a time in Lake Tahoe at my parents' house on the lake. We would go to parks and lay down in the grass and look up at the trees. We both loved the Celestian prophecies, and that's one of the exercises we would do. We would sit and talk about positive things and positive affirmations. He was a very spiritual, amazing guy, and he didn't care about Hollywood. He cared about making movies. He didn't really like publicity, as you can see from photos with his other friends that I don't want to name names, but they loved the photos being taken. Corey did it more for his fans. He loved his fans. So, and that also was a big attraction. He just was so kind-hearted. Anyone can see that. If you look at his photos and his eyes, I think his fans they know it. They know how, they can sense how kind he is. People just sense it with him.
I think there's an overwhelming consensus that you just have to see him in his interviews, watch his movies, his mannerisms, his face. He has such a sincerity about him. He had such a genuineness about him, and I think that's basically what made him a star. That's what made him stand above or apart from some other people that I won't mention.
And his talent, like God, Lucas. Remember Lucas? How God, that was the first thing I saw him in, and he was just so special. The minute I saw him, I thought, oh my God, who is that guy? He's going to do so well. So much talent. I remember one time I was auditioning for something, and I couldn't remember the lines. And he also did this when I was doing Wishmaster. He said, give it to me. And he took like, I think 5, 6, 7 pages, tons. It was a nonstop monologue. And he memorized it after one time of looking at it. I was so pissed because it took me the whole weekend to learn it. We did it, and we put him on camera. I think I still have the video. And he just lit it up. He didn't even have to try. And he would walk into a room, and people just turned their heads when he walked in. He didn't have to try. And so many other people have to try. He didn't try. He just had that specialness about him, that it's the it factor that you can't develop. You just are kind of you're born with it. He was born with it.
I think that's why I loved License to Drive so much. I used to watch that like a mental patient. Loved him in that. He made that movie. Without him, it wouldn't have been that movie. I mean, they're remaking it, I guess, but it's not going to be the same. No.
Maybe it will. Maybe it'll be great with the new people. But he made that movie so great, and also Lost Boys. There's so many. I mean, he did so many amazing movies. Such a special actor.
Oh, without a doubt. Now let's the engagement and the end of the relationship on and off.
Yeah, that was the hard part, and it wasn't like we were fighting or anything. It was him really, both of us wanting him to get off the pills. He really wanted off, and so he checked himself into rehab. He begged them to go. That's the weird thing, is what you think, if you want to go to rehab, you just go to rehab. It's not like that. We called around to so many of them, and they were all full. So we finally had to say he wasn't suicidal at all. We had to say that in order to get him into Exodus. It was a rehab that Robert Downey Jr. was in. I think there were a lot of actors there, and he liked it because they got Robert Downey Jr. back to Robert Downey Jr. They got him off of everything. So he really wanted a place that did well for other people. So he agreed to go there. He was excited about it, and he went there, and it was really hard, but he did it. But I thought it would be best because you're not supposed to date after or be with someone. It's easier to stay off the pills or drugs or whatever someone's doing if you're focusing on it and by yourself for a little bit. So he went to Canada, and we kind of we still spoke, but he just really wanted to stay clean, and I'm proud of him for that. He did his best, and then he kind of slipped, and there are people that I feel like made him slip whenever they kind of brought him back down. As soon as he was doing really well again, they didn't like it because they were jealous of him, and so they came around with temptations, and I saw that happen with my own eyes. And so he went to Canada. He spent, I don't think people realized, he spent a lot of time in Canada. His mom also didn't really want him in Hollywood. And, Corey wanted to be here for the acting, and a lot of his friends were here, but he, I think, preferred to be out of the limelight unless he was doing a movie. So.
And I think we know who we're talking about when you give your firsthand depiction of who was jealous and was probably the
maybe not. Yeah. I don't want to get in trouble. I just I don't want to. There were multiple people.
Of course.
People like to bring you down when you're doing well. That's why when I see comments like about people that do the interviews, I kind of was hesitant about doing this interview, because when happy people don't have to put other people down. It's the people that are, people that are not happy, they don't have to sit around. They have better things to do. So I just, people are going to put people down. You take it with a grain of salt.
Of course. Yeah. So moving past that, let's get a little bit closer as the years go up until his unfortunate death. What did you kind of see from him, having stayed close with him, having had a relationship with him? What can you kind of describe that period of time to be like?
Well, we lost track for a few years because when he went to Canada, he was really focused, and I got focused on my career. And then he contacted me, and I was so shocked because we did lose track for a while. And I was dating somebody new. He wanted me to go on to the reality show with him because he was telling me how he was ganged up on the show. And he just felt so alone. He wanted off the show, but he was under contract. He was very unhappy on the show, how they depicted him. And I didn't want to, I was dating someone, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that to the guy I was with, even though I've never had a connection like I did with Corey. So I said no, and I wish I did. I also didn't want to be involved with the people that were other people on the show. I just didn't want to be around them. And I wanted to help Corey, but so I talked to him all the time. Like, he would call after he was done filming and tell me what happened. And I wish I went on the show now because I didn't foresee what was, his death. I mean, in a way, actually, I did because I was after Heath Ledger passed. Corey and I were talking, and I said, I don't want to hear on the radio that you've passed away. So just because his heart was always a concern of his, but doctors always said he was fine. He would go to the doctors, and I remember it was always grabbing his heart, but the doctors said he was fine, and I was always concerned about that. So when he passed, it was shocking, but not shocking because of his heart. So, and that's what he passed away was his heart. So people don't realize, I think a lot of people don't realize that, but it was his heart.
Well, from what I understand, the official autopsy was in no way, shape, or form his fault, him taking his own life. Overdose, it had nothing to do with that. And you know what? Actually, I have something up here that came up recently. It was a letter to Senator John Flanagan, where the individual is Corey Feldman that penned this on March 14th of 2018, essentially saying that the events of these abuses and whatnot took his life, and I think that's patently false.
Wow. And who introduced the abuser to Corey Haim?
I believe we know who that is.
Right.
I believe we know who that is. So
it makes me, I always kind of wonder what would have happened to Corey, his life, if that abuser didn't come into his life. A lot of things wouldn't have happened that happened. He wouldn't have had that sadness about him and wanting to escape what happened to him. I mean, you got to kind of wonder who. It's kind of like a domino effect. Mm-hmm. So anyway. Yeah,
I think Bugs Bunny coined it the best when he said, "With friends like that, who needs enemies?"
Yeah, so, exactly.
Now, I just want to clarify too for everyone, Holly. You have no personal vendetta, beef, or any personal tuss-up with Mr. Feldman, do you, in any way?
Well, no, I don't, I feel bad for him because I just have to feel bad for him. I know he didn't have the best childhood with his family. Right. And I mean, I want to, I don't want to live that way. I of course I'm upset about a lot of things, but there's so much I'd like to say. I'm also a little hesitant about saying it because of what will happen. But
the reason I bring that up is, if I may, he has come out in videos as well, saying some very, how do I say it, unfavorable things toward one of his old friends, Scott Schwartz. Said some unfavorable things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love Judy. That was the one thing. When he said stuff about Judy, that got me mad. Judy is the most amazing person. That's the one thing they really got right in that movie is Judy. Judy is the best mother ever. Like I can't even tell you how great she is. When people started writing bad stuff about her and saying things about her that weren't true, that got me upset because she and Corey also were extremely close. They're saying that maybe he didn't tell her everything. No, he did. He was an open book. He really, truly was an open book. For example, on the reality show, he talked about the being the victim and what happened to him. Most people wouldn't talk about that on international television. That shows that he had nothing to hide. If he were like they're trying to depict him to be gay or whatever, he wouldn't have tried to hide that, especially because he had no problem with people being gay. He was so before his time back then, and it's another thing I loved about him. Because a lot of my friends are gay, and he was always so nice to them and open arms with all of them, and always saying, be who you want to be. Don't be embarrassed. And that's why I think another reason why he was such a great actor. He didn't have any guard up. He wasn't trying to hide anything ever. And we see that from when he brought up the so-called rape on the show, which I think shocked Corey Feldman a lot.
Yeah, to say the least. And quite frankly, my opinion is as well, if by any chance it did come out that he was, I honestly don't feel that would be anything. It would have been his own personal decision to just wanted to keep it quiet.
He was, but he wasn't. He wasn't.
Right.
I mean, God, he wasn't. I mean, he loved women. But he wasn't a cheater at all. When I say he loved women, he wasn't like that. He was such a devoted boyfriend. In fact, one time, this beautiful model came up to him. She was dating a friend of mine, and she was flirting with him. It was so obvious, and I was just like devastated. And he told her off in front of me, and he said, "How dare you flirt with me like this? I'm with her. This is my girlfriend at the time, And he said, it's so disrespectful of you to be this way in front of me and her." And the girl's face, I don't think this has ever happened to her before. Her mouth just dropped open. I've never dated a guy that was that cavalier, and he was a gentleman to the core, like such an amazing boyfriend, fiance. He never would have cheated. He never cheated. He was such a one-woman man, and definitely not gay, but he had no problem with other people being that way. If he wanted everyone's. He was always for everyone being who they are. And anyway, that's one of the stories that happened. There's so many good stories about him and things that he did that were so amazing, and just a great guy.
At this point, Holly, let's pause for to end part 1, and okay. We will take it up in the next video, everyone. Part 2, we're going to follow up on a few other things. So let's just get back to everyone in a bit.